Right now. Go.
Uninformed leftist.
Oh, hey, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Oh, I gotta pause the stream. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay. So yeah, I think
Yeah, I should make his mugshot into like a sticker or whatever.
I first found your channel when you were interviewing Anna from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And like that whole interview, and it seemed like it was like really against Hassan. I don't know if you've seen my channel at all, but I really started getting into YouTube politics, covering like the whole Ethan Klein versus Hassan drama.
Okay.
How like to date are you on that? I know you watched the most recent episode.
Yeah, so I think I just watched that just now. But we only watched maybe 20 minutes of it in total, and then I don't think I've watched much about their back and forths outside of like Twitter clips and shit like that since the nuke.
Okay. Yeah, did you watch the nuke on your channel? Did you like stream?
Yeah, I watched the
that?
nuke. Yeah, I watched the nuke and did a reaction to it, and then I also watched Denim's like response to it, which I thought was actually really good. And then I covered. I put out a video recently of another guy. I forget his name. It's like something radio.
Oh, North Star Radio.
Yes, North Star Radio. I did a response to his video about Ethan and Hassan recently as well. And so yeah, that's like the second to last video that I put out was the North Star Radio video because he did horribly. Like we debunked like tons of shit throughout that video.
Yeah, Dean was talking to Hassan. Like they actually had a conversation with each other. And it was so funny. Like Ethan Klein was trying to get Dean Withers, or I think that was his name. He's trying to get him to like support. He's trying to support him, and he's like, "Oh, Dean and his little Twitch buddies or TikTok buddies are so smart and they're so intelligent, and they know that communism isn't the way, and they know socialism isn't the way. So I really support them. They're going to do a great job." And then the guy was like shitting on Ethan's content nuke, and Ethan's community was so pissed at it. It was kind of funny.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that one yet. I don't watch him too much. I've actually like been in contact
I'd never heard
with
of
him. Yeah, Ethan, like he's had this whole relationship with Ethan for years, so it's kind of like intimate almost between the two of them. It's weird.
Huh.
But
Okay, so one thing that I wanted to say is I was looking at this guy's live chat, and he didn't have that many people watching him when we were having a conversation, but it was so funny seeing his live chat and then seeing their reactions to what I was saying. And at one point his live chat is like, "Oh shit, Tom's being a little racist in this one." It gets so good.
One thing that I thought was kind of interesting is when you're talking about how you covered Ethan saying Hassan needs to watch the video, and then you're like, okay, well, Hassan's watched a lot of different videos of it. Like, would you agree with me that it's kind of like a distinction without a difference between watching the actual video itself and watching people breaking down the arguments of the video?
Well, so initially he said, Bad Up Banana was reviewing his content nuke on Hassan. But then a couple minutes later, he said that Bad Up Banana just made a video about him. And so I haven't seen Hassan review anything that's actually about the content nuke or anybody reviewing the content nuke or anything like that. I haven't seen.
This is the thing with talking to a lot of these guys. They don't actually watch the things they're criticizing. They don't actually watch Hassan and criticize him. And so then they're like, "Oh, well, I've never seen him disavow Hamas. I've never seen him say that I've never seen him say that Trump is worse than Kamala Harris. He's actually a Trump supporter." It's like, okay, well, you need to actually know what you're talking about. And when you're talking about political streamers or streamers in general, you need to kind of watch them, which is why I've been watching Ethan Klein's show a lot to actually criticize him. And it's just so funny. He's like, he doesn't know anything that he's talking about when talking about Ethan or Hassan. But you can look at this. It's like in his channel, Anna from Ukraine calls out Hassan and other pundits. Crazy hit piece leftists calling Ethan racist. Insane hypocrisy. Hasanabi, Denims, and Frogan caught lying about Ethan Klein. So he's covering this shit, but he doesn't know the first thing about it, which is it's a weird place to be in a conversation in, because I'm like, I don't know this guy. I don't watch his stream, so I'm trying to lay the groundwork to have some kind of common understanding of where he's at. But also while trying to correct the crazy things that he's saying.
him engage with it even a little bit. And so I thought that, yes, if he watches Bad Empanada review the Content Nuke, then sure, now he's actually watched the Content Nuke. But then they said that it ended up being an 8-minute video on his like hour-long video. So yeah, so it then no, and if that's all he had watched was that, then no, I don't think that it would be the same thing.
Yeah, and I know Bad Empanada has been making a series of like 8 to 10 minute long videos. I think in the latest episode, Ethan even said Hassan had that playlist pinned at the top of his stream. I don't know how many videos Hassan's actually watched through, but like it is a series that Bad Empanada is doing on the entire thing. It's not just one 8-minute video like talking about it. But I think so. One of my biggest issues with Ethan in this whole thing is really, I think his like conflation between Judaism and Israel is kind of a harmful idea that he's putting out into the internet. Have you really like come across that, and like what's your reaction to that?
When you say Judaism, do you mean Zionism?
No, I mean Judaism because I know you say you watched the Nuke. One part really stands out to me. Hassan's watching I think it's like Hezbollah or Houthi. It's a Hezbollah or Houthi music video, and Hassan makes a joke and he's like, "Oh yeah, they've got the pipes too. Israel's been real quiet ever since this dropped." And then Ethan says, "Oh, you think Jews don't have music? Well, what about this?" And then he plays like a bunch of little kids wearing like the yarmulkes, dancing and singing a song in Hebrew, and then he's playing like he has a video of a guy playing like the shofar in the background, and it's like a pretty gross conflation between Jewish culture and Israel.
People like Hassan say that Israel is an ethno-state, and so if Israel is an ethno-state of Jewish people, and he shows that Jewish people have something within their culture, it just logically follows that Hassan would also believe that Israel is doing that thing. No?
I don't think that Hassan would say that aspects of Jewish culture are inherently Israel.
Okay, so this was funny to me. I make the claim that Ethan's like conflating Zionism with Judaism and anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and then the guy's like, well, I think Ethan's just calling out dog whistles whenever he sees them. And I'm just like, Ethan literally uses the term, like whenever he sees someone saying they're against Zionists, he says you're just against all Jews. He also says that all Jews support Israel fully, like whether they're in Israel or not in Israel. And he says people that are criticizing Israel are actually anti-Semitic. So either Ethan exists in this world where there is this giant global conspiracy to conflate Zionism with like Judaism. Everyone in the world is conflating this, and he's all too happy to not call out the difference between Zionism and Judaism. He doesn't refute that narrative at all. It's like, listen, if he thinks it's dog whistle, why doesn't he correct the record straight? Why doesn't he say Zionism is not the same as Judaism, but these people are dog whistling it so that they make it seem like it is the same? Like he doesn't engage with it. He does believe that Zionism is the same as Judaism. And this guy, Tom Papafoolery or whatever the fuck his name is, Tom Foolery Show, he's saying that like, no, Ethan's just exists in this world where there's this grand conspiracy to conflate Zionism with Judaism. And anyone that ever utters the word Zionist must mean like they must be dog whistling because there is no Zionism without Judaism. And Ethan Klein is like just responding to this dog whistling. It would be anti-Semitic to think the same for Ethan. Yeah, this is the other thing, man. I need to make like an actually like polished, edited video of Ethan Klein being anti-Semitic because he's so fucking anti-Semitic. Like literally, whenever a Jewish person says that I don't support Israel, he calls him a token, or he says that it's like Hassan's pre-approved list of Jews. He basically implies that they're like a self-hating Jew, or compares them to capos. Well, like Candace Owens is black and she works against the interests of black Americans. It's like, yes, dude, but anti-Zionist Jews don't work against the interests of black Americans. It's literally like, he literally like singles out Jewish people and says you're a token because you're anti-Israel. But then what if Hassan's anti-Israel? I guess Listen, he's like supportive of people that are anti-Israel, but if they're Jewish, they're like being if they're a Jewish anti-Zionist, then they're being tokenized. Which just implies that if you're a non-Jewish anti-Zionist, you're being anti-Semitic. It's fucking gross.
Really.
Well, I don't think it would be the other way around.
Anyway, I'm going to rewind this a bit.
I don't think that Hassan would say that aspects of Jewish culture are inherently Israeli.
Well, I don't think it
and
would be the
this
other
is
way around.
actually-
Aspects of Israeli culture wouldn't automatically be Jewish, but if Israel is an ethno-state, then then Jewish culture would be part of Israeli culture.
Yeah, Jewish culture would be part of Israeli culture, but when you're explicitly defining Israel as Jews and Jewish culture, then that does go a long way in kind of flattening of Jewish culture overall. Would you agree with that? And that's where we're getting a lot of anti-Semitism, where people are now associating the Star of David with Israel and the genocide they're doing.
But it's literally on their flag.
Right. And that's an aspect of conflating Jewish culture with Israel and the actions that Israel's doing. Like,
So,
there are
I
so
understand
many
what you're
people in
saying.
Israel.
There is a difference. There is a distinction. The problem that a lot of people are having with like what it is that Hassan does, most of the time I'll connect it to like Nick Fuentes, because this is the way that I started like noticing it well over a year ago, is when everything that he did started to sound like dog whistles for the same thing. And if you notice a pattern of behavior, and now you notice a ton of other things that would align with that behavior. So like if Nick Fuentes makes a joke about like, cooking cookies in an oven, and that you can't like cook this many cookies in an oven in a certain amount of years, it would be impossible. Like, well, the fact that he already has this like pattern of behavior to where he says anti-Semitic things, that a joke about like the fact that this many Jews couldn't have died in gas chambers and shit like that is already like,
What the fuck is this like ADHD Zoomer type shit? I don't want to watch a pizza smearing its oil grease around a white screen in the bottom corner. Is this a game that he's playing?
because you already have the pattern of behavior, we're not going to take that joke the way that we would from anybody else. Like other people who aren't anti-Semitic, we're not going to be.
It's so funny. Like the example that he gives of a joke that could be funny in the context of like someone that's not anti-Semitic versus a clearly anti-Semitic joke is saying you can only bake a certain number of cookies at a time. That's literally not a joke. In no context is that a joke, except for the Nazi context. That's the only context where it would be a joke, because it is dog whistling. I mean, I don't even think it's really a dog whistle. It's just like a Nazi meme. It's a Holocaust revisionist meme. That's all it is. That's not a joke unless you're a fucking Nazi. And it's not even I wouldn't even really call it a dog whistle. It's just a I don't know, like a veiled way of saying that Jews weren't, like, the 6 million Jews weren't killed in the Holocaust.
Offended by the joke or think it's a big deal or anything. But when he says it, when Nick Fuentes says it, we're going to take it very differently than just some regular Joe Schmo. And so I think it's the same with Hassan, where like these patterns of behavior are consistently being picked up. And then when he says something that comes close to it, like the way that people look at, the way he uses the word Zionism over and over, like it just starts to... All
right, honestly, I don't have like a great memory of what occurred here, but like I hope I ask him, okay, can you give me an example of where Hassan's been anti-Semitic?
It starts to align with what it is that you already think about him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that doesn't really have to do with what I was talking about, which is Ethan Klein and people that do run propaganda defense for Israel are insistent that Israel is representative of all Jewish people, even Jewish people.
I guess that's like a fair thing to say too. Because it is true, like, even if Hassan is dog whistling, that doesn't excuse Ethan from my claim where he's conflating anti-Semitism with Zionism. Or like he's conflating Judaism with Zionism. He's conflating Jewishness with Israel. And if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing Jewish people because all Jewish people support Israel. Like, it is at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. And if you're going to be speaking out against anti-Semitism and you're going to be speaking out against anti-Zionism, or like you're going to be talking about Zionism at all, you need to do your audience the service of distinguishing between Zionism and Judaism. But Ethan doesn't think there is a distinction there. He literally doesn't think there's a distinction there, which is why he's a Zionist. Like, he thinks being Jewish necessitates your support for a Jewish homeland in Israel.
People living in the diaspora outside of the borders of Israel.
Sure, I
And
don't think it's
that is a
representative
negative
of.
consequence.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if he says that. I don't know if that means that he thinks it's representative of all Jewish people. I just think that
Well,
he.
he says that he says that, like, he literally said 90% of Jews are Zionists. So 90% of Jews outside of Israel support Israel. And that there was this whole conversation between him and Hassan, and they were talking about the slogan "From the river to the sea." And
Mhm.
Ethan Klein was trying to make the argument that that slogan makes Jewish people feel under attack because since 90% of Jewish people living in the diaspora are Zionists, which is a statistic he just came up with off the top of his head, by the way, then that means that they personally feel
I
threatened
think it's like
because
82%.
Israel is
but
losing some kind of power.
yeah, I don't.
And I just think that that's a harmful consequence of an ethnocid in general. And then when you also have people like Ethan who are talking about Israel, and let's say he's not even talking about it in a positive way, but when he is talking about Israel, he insists on saying Jews equal Zionists, which equal Israelis. And I think
Yeah,
that's
again,
like
I
a
don't think
really
that's necessarily true because he would know the differences between the cultures. Like he's lived there, he has family there, his wife is from there. Like if there was a difference between the two, he would know the difference. We're talking about like a semantic difference in the way that he talks about it, but the fact that he, like, if somebody was talking about like Palestinians, but instead they said like, well, this is part of Arab culture. Like, well, just because it's part of Arab culture doesn't necessarily mean it's part of Palestinian culture. But if they're actually Palestinian, like, well, they know that difference. So we just know what they mean.
Let me get your opinion on this. Last week in an episode, Ethan Klein, I think it was last week, he had Steiny on. Are you familiar with Steiny at all?
No, I don't know Steiny.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know either. But apparently he's friends with Sneeko, and Ethan was kind of pinning him down on that friendship. And he's like, "You're friends with Sneeko. Sneeko's extremely anti-Semitic." And then Steiny says, "Well, Sneeko's not anti-Semitic because he supports Trump, and Trump supports Israel." And then Ethan didn't have any kind of pushback on that at all,
Yeah.
which seems to be that his definition of anti-Semitism is if you don't support Israel. And if you do support Israel, you're not anti-Semitic.
I don't know. I do think that like it would be hard to believe that somebody who's anti-Semitic would be in support of Israel. Like, again, it
You-
does follow. Like, it's not necessarily true, but that's not like saying like, oh, I have Jewish friends because obviously
Sorry, I had to block that. Pizza game is so distracting.
when it comes to like whether or not you're anti-Semitic, it's more about like the discrimination of the group of people. While you could still be friends with them, that doesn't mean that you're not like you don't think of the group as in a specific way. Whereas like being supportive of Israel, like I don't know any anti-Semites who are supportive of Israel. Like I can't think of any that are.
So there are no anti-Semites that are supportive of Israel. Okay, I mean we gotta look this up. Richard, what? There was like a preacher that was supportive of Israel. Christian Zionist America.
The Palestinian people are suffering injustices that have yet to be rectified, and the Christian community contributes to that. The Christian Zionist movement is super powerful, even more powerful than the Jewish Zionist movement, 10-1, some might say. Many Christians will send
MTG.
money to Israel, and they'll think, they'll send money to build playgrounds in Israel. But actually, they're building playgrounds in settlements that are built on land that's been confiscated from Palestinians. They don't know most of the time. When I went to the Holy Land for the first time, I was going on a spiritual pilgrimage to Israel, and I saw signs on that trip that said Free Palestine. And I had 3 master's degrees and was getting my PhD, and I thought Palestine was a map in the back of my Bible. I had no idea. There was so much that I didn't know. Went to the Bethlehem Bible College. The founder of it, Bashar Awad, told his family's story and how his father was
Yeah, like Elon Musk is the perfect example, and I actually bring that up. I just think like Christian Zionism is so interesting. The dispiriting truth about why many evangelical why many evangelical Christians support Israel. Joe reacts to Trump's praise of Hezbollah. That's your Republican Party right there. What? Trump praised Hezbollah? Wait. What? How old is this article? This is hilarious. This is October 22nd, 2023.
Have said who won the 2020 election. This is a party that is so lost right now and just wandering around aimlessly in right field.
Yeah, and that's not the fringe, that's leadership. That's the two choices who want to run the caucus in the House of Representatives, the United States of America, won't say who won the 2020 election. Think about that for a minute. We've got...
Oh my God. Jeffrey, yeah, she has three masters, and she thought Palestine was just a map on the back of her Bible.
Over the last couple of years, but that's absolutely insane that they're still running defense. They're still running interference for Donald Trump, who's running for president again. And by the way, maybe we won't play it, but he truly yesterday an insane event where he was talking about
we're gonna show
Barack Obama is actually running the government, criticizing Bibi Netanyahu, saying, I want to make sure I get the quote right, that Hezbollah is, quote, very smart Hezbollah. So that's the guy that they're defending.
No, yeah. I mean, Trump is also anti-Semitic. Anyway, like it's just so funny. I don't know any anti-Semites that don't like Israel or that like Israel.
I'm pretty sure there's some anti-Semitic like preachers that are supportive of Israel. Donald Trump, I don't think he's the most like enlightened person in the world. He's famous for calling out Jews in America, saying that if he lost the election, that the Jews were responsible because he was going to like be the biggest supporter of Israel. That seemed a little iffy. So, are you actually kind of agreeing with the definite? Like, do you think this is a productive definition of anti-Semitism to say that you support an ethno-state of Jews versus you just don't discriminate against Jewish people?
Not necessarily, no, because I would say, like, I know a bunch of people would call me a Zionist, even though I don't think I am. I'm not like as much in favor of the ethno-state, but more so like the idea they had when they first built Israel and claimed the state is that they were that this was meant to be like a place for Arab people and Jewish people to live like in peace together and all of that, and that I don't know if that's possible now, but it is more so that like they just historically, I think it makes sense that they would need a place to be, and that it just so happens to be there. But yeah, I don't know that I would like, I support them having a state, but not necessarily an ethno-state. Like, it doesn't have to be an ethno-state in order to support it, right?
Well, I think that a lot of
Bro, like what are we talking about here? He's like, I support Jews having a state, but not necessarily an ethno-state. Well, if you support the idea of specifically Jewish people having a state, that would be an ethno-state. It gets worse.
Of Christian Zionists do have like an anti-Semitic streak in them. Obviously, there's that whole thing with like Candace Owens, who kind of got she didn't really get fired from the Daily Wire for posting Christ is King, but that was a through line in the Daily Wire. She is a
I mean, I
Christian.
think that is
There
really what
was-
she got fired for. I think that really is
For
what she
posting
got
that?
fired. Oh yes,
I
I
think she
think
got
like
fired for
that was one
criticizing Israel.
thing. No.
Yeah, it was one thing.
No, I don't think.
But what
Yeah,
I would say
no,
is
I
that,
don't think
like,
it was
there's-
the one thing, but I think it was like the anti-Semitism over. I literally did an entire documentary on this topic, showing that
Okay.
like over the course of like the last.
All right, I'm gonna skip forward this part.
Posted
Yeah,
was that
yeah,
something else?
something. Yeah, shoot, but
Like, Candace Owens is kind of irrelevant. I do
Reason
think
that Israel really
I do think Candace Owens supports Israel. She's just like not supportive of their genocide, but she's definitely supportive of ethno-states.
countries because the United States and the UK and the rest of Europe didn't really want Jews, like Jewish refugees after World War II, to come to their country and to like immigrate to their countries. And so they were completely fine with Jewish Zionists setting up Israel and encouraging immigration there. That's at least like a big part of it. And then we can also just talk about how.
So like look at this comment here. Z King in this guy's chat says, like religious people. Oh, he's like, okay, I sort of get what he means. Like his chat is literally turning against him. He's like, okay, I sort of get what he means. Like religious people who are anti-Semitic, but also follow the prophecy of the faith, like black Israelites is a great example of this at Tomfoolery Show. And it works because they believed that they're the true Jews. So it's like, yeah, they might support Israel because they support these prophecies, but they're anti-Semitic against Jewish people. Also, the idea of supporting an ethno-state is inherently like against the people of that ethnicity, because you're inherently saying, why do you need to be in our country? You should be in your country. There's literally a country designed for you specifically. Go there. We don't want you here.
Like Elon Musk is a perfect example of someone who is anti-Semitic. He literally did the Sig Heil at the inauguration. He posted Jewish, not really Jewish question stuff, but Jewish conspiracy theories, responding to someone who said like Jews are bringing in immigrants and brown people to replace white populations. And he said that is the absolute truth. He goes and supports Israel. Like he's a massive supporter of Israel right now.
So on the first thing, I grew up a Christian. We like my family definitely were Zionists, but they were Zionists in the sense that like the Bible talks about like the new Israel, and that when Jesus comes back, he'll have like a place for the Jews in New Israel, and that or it's New Jerusalem. But that the like because the Jews were God's chosen people, like that they were like super supportive of the Jewish people and of Israel and all of this crap. And so the most of like the Christian communities that I grew up in had support for Zionism for those reasons, because they felt like it was like part of the plan for the rapture and everything, that like Israel had to exist, the new Israel had to be there. And so that was just like a huge part of their support for it. But the more like anti-Semitic Christians, in my experiences, has been more of like a newer like younger generation. And that's something that I've like gone over the stats on, is that younger Christians today don't really believe in like Jews being the chosen people, that like Christians replace them as the chosen people when Jesus died on the cross and all of this crap, and that it is it's been a newer phenomena within Christianity.
I don't know. I think I let people drone on too much when I have conversations with people, because like this is kind of irrelevant to what I'm saying. Like I'm just trying to pinpoint his definition of Zionism, and he's like, well, I think like he's not even saying anything. I think that Christians no longer believe in things that Christians believe in.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I just think like at the end of the day, ethno-states are a bad idea. And when we do see ethno-states, it's really important, if you're going to be speaking publicly about them, to do everything in your power to differentiate the people from those ethno-states from the actual state itself. And when Ethan is, once again, conflating Jewish culture to Israel, like Israel in general, or when you were talking about Zionists, and we can both agree, I'm assuming, that there are non-Jewish Zionists. You said you were just finished talking about how you grew up in a Christian Zionist religion.
Yeah.
And then when Ethan says that if you're talking about Zionists, you're talking about Jews as well, that is correct. That it's like, it's, if you take him at his word and you see, like, let's say that even if this is true or not, people see Zionists and they're like, okay, Zionists support genocide. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. But if someone sees that and they believe that, and then they see Ethan Klein saying that, oh, someone said death to Zionists, and Ethan says, what, are you saying death to all Jews? That if you take Ethan at his word, it's going to end up being, oh, well, I guess all Jews support genocide. All Jews are Zionists, according to Ethan. All Jews are supporting genocide. I'm not going to really support Jews anymore. Or maybe if I see someone wearing like Jewish iconography, like the Star of David, I'm going to assume that they're in favor of what Israel's doing. When we know that's not the case. There's a large, there's a large anti-Zionist Jewish movement in the United States, like Jewish Voice for Peace, where people are fighting against the idea that all Jews are Zionists.
Yeah, I wouldn't say large. There is a I would say that it seems to be that by far the majority of Jews are Zionists. But it's kind of what I was saying earlier, though. Like it just starts to come off like dog whistles a lot of times, especially the ways that like the words like Zionists are used. And so depending on who's saying it, it can really.
Dude, just once again, like completely unable to engage in my point. My point is that it doesn't matter if there's dog whistles or not. In fact, if there are dog whistles, it becomes even more important for people to fight against those dog whistles and disentangle the concepts of Judaism and Zionism. And this guy's like, oh, well, if there are dog whistles, what do you want us to do? Like, we have to engage in the dog whistles. If we exist in this world where this guy and Ethan Klein exist in, where every time someone says, I'm against Zionism, they mean they hate Jews and they want to like kick them all out of Israel, or basically want to kill all of the Jews. Why are you just accepting their terminology? Why are you just being like, oh yeah, the actions that Israel's doing and the idea that Israel needs to be an ethnic supermajority of Jewish people, that is representative of all Jews. You're literally making Jew hatred worse by condoning that message, by condoning the conflation of Zionism to Semitism. And it's really interesting because you see, like, we know that Ethan Klein will conflate Judaism to Zionism, right? We know that he'll do that. And he'll conflate Israel, like Israeli citizens, to Jews. And so if you criticize Israelis, you're being anti-Semitic. If you say, oh, well, like, 2/3 of Israelis are supportive of this genocide, he's like, no, they're not. Israel's a beautiful country. It's super diverse. It's multicultural. I love going there, and I'm super proud to be there. We know that, like, Ethan will endeavor to separate Israeli citizens from the atrocious actions that the Israeli government is doing. So he'll say, I'm against the far-right government. I'm against this like genocidal military coalition. I'm against the settlers in the West Bank. They're all crazy. There is a fringe of far-right extremists in Israel that are powering this entire genocide, and we are against them. But that doesn't represent all of Israelis. So we know that Ethan Klein, and like that's not true, right? That's not true. The vast majority of Israelis support the genocide. Even if they might want a ceasefire so that they can get hostages out, they still support the genocide. So we know that Ethan Klein is able to differentiate the people of a place from the actions of its government. But what is he unwilling to do? He is unwilling to differentiate Jewishness from the belief that there must be a supermajority of Jewish people in Israel, because he doesn't support the genocidal actions of Netanyahu, but what he does support is Israel being an ethnostate. He supports that. And so when people attack him for that belief, he then will stick with the idea that Jewishness is inextricably intertwined with Zionism. And so if you criticize Zionism, which is an idea that Ethan supports, you're criticizing Jewishness. And it's just like Israel, the far-right people in Israel that are doing genocide and colonization do the exact same thing, except they use Jewishness and they use that as a shield for their genocidal actions. So now, like, you have Ethan saying, if you criticize Zionism and ethnostates, that's anti-Semitic. Israel, and then you have like the even further right people doing the exact same arguments, except for their actions. If you criticize our colonization, if you criticize us bombing Gaza, if you try to like arrest our leaders for doing war crimes, that's anti-Semitic. It's the exact same argument. It's just that Ethan is not as extreme as these people, even though at the end of the day, he's just as racist as them.
Come off like a dog whistle. And so with somebody like Hassan, like, you know, Twitch changed their TOS because they got pressure for the way that people use the words Zionist. And so they changed their TOS to say that, like, in certain contexts, using the word Zionist as an insult can be anti-Semitic, because they saw that all of these people were using the word Zionist with insults right in front of it every single time. And almost every single time, it was a Jewish person. That's been a thing with Hassan, is almost every time he says, like, inbred fucking Zionists, or, pig dog fucking Zionists, or some shit like that, every time it's a Jewish person. Every time it's a fucking Jewish person. It's never just like some white pastor who loves Israel, or it's not like, Trump, who's like, super pro-Zionism, or like, it's never that. It's always a Jewish person. And so eventually you just start to recognize the pattern. Just like somebody who says 1350 over and over, like they're not just pointing out like some sort of statistic just to let you know that this like crime stat exists. No, they're trying to push a certain message with that crime stat. They're saying like all black people are violent is what they're really saying.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I can definitely see how Zionist can be used as a way to discriminate against Jewish people. I think that there was an example that Ethan Klein used on his show where he's talking about how Myron Gaines used the word Zionist in some kind of tweet, and it was kind of humorous for me when I was watching that, because the tweet was Myron Gaines calling for people to stop using the word Zionist and to just say Jew. And so, like, the one tweet that Ethan found of a guy using Zionist as a dog whistle is him calling for the dropping of that dog whistle. And the other thing that I would have to say is Zionist is a political term, and it has been conflated with Judaism by pro-Israeli propagandists like Ethan Klein. And so when we're talking about it being used as a political term, sure, Hassan will use his term Zionist and he'll add some kind of insulting adjective on the top of it. And a lot of times he will use it to describe Jewish people. However, when Ethan uses the word Zionist, he exclusively uses it to refer to Jewish people, because
I mean, I should also have made the point there that when Hassan uses the word Zionist, he's talking about the political ideology of Zionist. It does not have anything to do with Jewishness. It is simply the idea that Israel is like an exceptional state and must be an expansionist imperial power in the Middle East. Like, that's all that Hassan's talking about when he uses the word Zionist. I shouldn't have really said sometimes he'll use it to refer to Jewish people. Like, obviously that's true, but that's not like the best rhetoric to use in this situation.
That is his way of defending Israel's actions. If you criticize Zionists, you're being anti-Semitic. If you criticize Israel, you're being anti-Semitic, because you're actually just referring to Jews. So I don't
think he believes that as a clean slate, though, because he's talked about it a bunch of times. That, like, he thinks there's tons of people who are anti-Zionism that he doesn't think are anti-Semitic. It's just about like the patterns that you pick up on.
Like, listen, this would be a perfect time to say, can you give me a single example of Ethan acknowledging someone is anti-Zionist and saying that they're not anti-Semitic? Because even when Ethan first started this crusade against Hassan, he said, I don't think Hassan is personally anti-Semitic. I just think he enables a lot of anti-Semitism. So, like, literally the act of humanizing people that are resisting against Israel, that is enabling anti-Semitism in Ethan's view. He never said Hassan's not anti-Semitic and he's just an anti-Zionist. He never said that. I've never actually heard Ethan say, this person isn't anti-Semitic, they're just anti-Zionist. Because he believes Zionism and anti-Semitism, or anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, is the same thing.
Over time. I don't know if you were around for the Trihex meme getting banned on Twitch. Do you know about that?
The Trihex meme getting banned on Twitch?
Yeah, it was a tryhard meme where it was...
I'm not even gonna... Okay, let's play this a little bit.
But then every single time any streamers had a black person on stream, everybody would spam the Trihex emoji to where it didn't mean tryhard.
Like, he's literally just using an example of racist people making memes. Like, once again, this isn't a joke. Like, the guy's like, oh, Zionism is right when some people use it and it's wrong when some other people use it. But then all of the examples he uses are just like... they're literally just dog whistles that have no other meaning for any other context.
Anymore, or what it was supposed to mean. It just started to mean black person. And so they had to get rid of the emoji, and it made it like hard to even have a black person as an emoji anymore, because everybody used it in like a very racist sort of way to where it just meant black person now. And so, yeah, I think that it's just about like the context and how you use these things. And I think he's talked about it a number of times to the point that I think he doesn't even consider himself a Zionist under like normal context, but he under like he would say, I think he said in the video that like he only under like the way that leftists use the word Zionist is he a Zionist.
Yeah, and I think that he's been reacting to getting called a Zionist a lot online. And he's like, oh, well, if you're calling me a Zionist, I am not pro-genocide. And obviously, he's like seen a lot of people being like, oh, if you support genocide, you're a Zionist. And so then when he gets called a Zionist, he automatically assumes that, oh, it must be because I'm Jewish. And then maybe that's why he thinks that when people talk about Zionism, they're talking about Judaism. I do think that's not a very productive definition of the term, and I do think he should try a little bit harder when he's reacting.
Yeah, I'm like trying to steel man his argument right now. I'm like, okay, well, maybe if Ethan Klein sees that he's being called a Zionist and he's like, well, I don't support the genocide, I only support the ethno-state, but I couldn't possibly, because I support an ethno-state of Israel and I make fun of people protesting against Israel, it must be because I'm Jewish. Like, I'm trying so hard to steel man this guy's argument. And I'm like, but even if that's true, he should do better when talking about this, because he's he's either knowingly or unknowingly spreading a lot of anti-Semitism.
But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean he defines it that way. He's saying that that's how other people are using it, that they're using it in an anti-Semitic way. Not that that's his definition for it. So just the same as when you were talking about the first example that you brought up, that I think that he's saying that this is the way that they view it, and that he's responding to like the way that they talk about these words, like Jewish culture and Israeli culture and things like that.
Yeah, I think maybe you could make that argument. I don't think that Ethan uses the word Zionist only in the context of how left-wing people use it, or
yeah, this is the issue with the guy's argument. He's saying Ethan uses the word Zionist to conflate Judaism to Zionism because other people are using it like that. But he's just like calling them out for their hatred. But he's always used Zionist and Judaism interchangeably. So why is he engaging in their language if he thinks it's like dog whistly and wrong? That would be like, oh, the OK sign is now like a white supremacist symbol. And then I always just like flash up the OK sign over and over and over again. And I'm like, but don't worry, like they're just the ones that are saying it's a white supremacist symbol. Or I'm using their language of it.
Semitic people use it. But I do think that when we're talking about him conflating Judaism to Israeli culture, that's not really an argument that you can use when it comes to that kind of context, because he is consistently he's consistently defining Israel as like almost the definition of Judaism, and that is a strong like Israeli propaganda Zionist talking point. That's literally like a way that Israeli propaganda has been defending Israel's actions since the conception of Israel, saying that if you are criticizing Israel, you're actually being anti-Semitic. Do you just kind of see what I'm talking about there?
Maybe. Most of the time that I hear that argument, it's people talking about like the ADL and getting upset with their like their definition that they've used from the I forget the name of the organization that they use, but that
it'd be like Ethan doing a Roman salute live on stream multiple times. Oh wait, that actually happened. But don't worry, it's Ethan's Jewish, so he can do it.
That when you go and actually read the organization's actual like description, they're not actually saying it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel. And so most of the time, it's one of the things that I use in my documentary about Candace Owens, that she keeps saying, "Oh yeah, the ADL says it's anti-Semitic just to criticize Israel." And then you go and read the definition, and it doesn't say that at all. Actually, it says that criticisms can be anti-Semitic, but it specifically says not all like criticisms of Israel or being against Israel is automatically anti-Semitic. It's going to be based on the context and how it's used.
This is interesting too, because that's misleading. ADL, anti-Zionism, anti-Israel and anti-Zionist campaigns. Sorry, let me get rid of the black screen, the black anti-pizza screen. Oops, there. There is a wide range of views on the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and the vigorous debate and activism on this complex situation is an important component of public discourse and the free exchange of ideas. While criticism of Israeli policies and actions is part of that discourse, certain forms of anti-Israel rhetoric and activism delegitimize Israel and its existence and are anti-Semitic when they vilify and negate Zionism, the movement of Jewish self-determination and statehood. So literally, or utilize anti-Jewish tropes or hold all Jews responsible for Israel's actions. So it's like, okay, if you utilize anti-Jewish tropes, that is tautologically, like by definition, anti-Semitic. Oh, you're using an anti-Jewish trope? Anti-Jewish is a synonym for anti-Semitic. Of course it's anti-Semitic. Or hold all Jews responsible for Israel's actions. That's funny. So if you hold all Jews responsible for Israel's actions, that's anti-Semitic, which I agree with. That is an anti-Semitic talking point. But if you target Zionism, the movement for self-determination and Jewish self-determination and statehood, which once again necessitates a Jewish ethno-state. So if you criticize the ethno-state, that is anti-Semitic. So they're saying that it's anti-Semitic to hold all Jews responsible for Israel's actions, which I agree with, but it's also anti-Semitic to try to vilify and negate Zionism. Even if you try to negate Zionism, even if you try to negate so basically, if you advocate for a one-state solution, where then the Jews lose their ethnic supermajority, and then you can make an argument that they've lost their self-determination because now they live in a democratic country with an equal amount of people that are non-Jewish, that is anti-Semitic. Advocating for a one-state solution is anti-Semitic. Advocating for Palestinian refugees to be resettled within Israel's borders, that's anti-Semitic because you are eating away at the Jewish supermajority and thus their self-determination. So it's like when the ADL says it's okay, well, what the heck? When the ADL says it's okay to criticize Israel's policies and actions, then that's not anti-Semitic. But if you criticize the policy that undergirds all of its actions, that's anti-Semitic. It's completely misleading, and it's basically lying. Like, it's worse than misleading. So yeah, then Israel uses anti-Semitism as an excuse for all of its actions. Oh, you want to try Netanyahu and you have Gallant for war crimes? That's anti-Semitism. You say that Israel can't kill innocent civilians because they're being used as human shields, like according to Israel? That's anti-Semitism. You're saying that the Jews can't defend themselves.
And how it's said and shit like that, but that obviously people can use criticisms of Israel to be anti-Semitic, which Nick Fuentes does consistently, is he tries to use like every sort of geopolitical decision that Israel ever makes as this anti-Semitic talking point for them to get some sort of world domination, or for them to get sympathy, or for them to lobby people or whatever. He commonly uses these things with Israel to talk about what the Jews are doing in America.
What would your definition of
AIPAC.
Zionism be?
It depends. It's hard to say. I guess because it is. I think because I'm online, there's so many different definitions that people use that it is hard for me to really have a coherent one. Because I don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of them having an ethno-state. I don't mind ethno-states. It's just because of the way that their country was.
Bro, that line literally perked my ears up. I'm like, what? You don't mind ethno-states?
Set up to where they were taking it from other people, to where it seems like those people have some rights to that land, and their lineage is also there, to where it would be fucked up to just kick them off. And then especially the fact that they did it right in the middle of Palestine, to where Palestine's split up into a bunch of different pieces now. But I think most people consider Zionism to just be support for Israel to exist. And in that sense, I would be a Zionist. But if it's the sense that they have to exist as a Jewish ethno-state, then no, I would not be a Zionist.
Yeah.
But those are the two main definitions that I hear from people. So those are.
Yeah, and I think Ethan would kind of fall in under the category of he's kind of pro ethno-state in Israel. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Okay, yeah, I guess maybe it's going to get a bit more nuanced, because I would say right now, I do think that they have like justification for why they weren't letting Palestinians in, because it just was dangerous, and that doesn't.
Right, you guys need to see his chat. It's so he's like, I don't mind ethno states. And like, here, I'm just gonna move my cam over. Ethno state Tom in the chat. It's just so good.
Mean that like Palestinians didn't have reasons to want to attack Israel as well, but that like if we admit that Palestinians have reasons to want to attack Israel, then we are kind of also saying that it makes sense that Israel wouldn't let them in to attack their citizens and bomb their own citizens, because it would be dangerous for them. So lots of people think that's an excuse to defend an ethno state, and pragmatically it just does end up defending an ethno state. But for me, it's not for the sake of an ethno state, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're just saying kind of the context that Israel currently exists under almost necessitates that it remains an ethno state.
Yes, right. Yeah, based on the current.
Once again, that's just not true at all. It's like we need to be an ethno state so that we defend ourselves, because being an ethno state has only ushered in peace and prosperity to the entire region. Yeah, it's like the opposite of the truth.
The current problems or the current predicament that they're in, that it just kind of necessitates, yes, that it end up being an ethno state. And when you say that, well, he is defending an ethno state, that's the
also, it's so stupid. Like literally the moment European Jewish settlers came down to form the nation state of Israel, they had issues. Like, it's always been a violent process, and they're in this position completely by design. It's not that they just woke up and happened to be, oops, looks like we're an ethno state now. Well, I guess we just better keep trucking along because there's no going back. Like, now we need to be an ethno state to defend ourselves.
However, the argument for why he would be defending an ethno state, and I think that I agree with him in those terms, but yeah, it's hard because the idea is,
because
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely hard to say when you start getting into that conversation of, oh well, I want an ethno state just not because I like ethno states, but just because all of these people surrounding this country want to kill me. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the reason they want to kill you is because you want an ethno state.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit it's almost meaningless to when we're talking about that, and it's hard. It's like impossible to differentiate, right? It's impossible to say, oh well, I want an ethno state because I like ethno states versus I want an ethno state because I think that the people that aren't this ethnicity would like kill all of the Jews if we ever got rid of an ethno state, which is something that Ethan has repeated. The belief that if the Jews of Israel ever basically like lost their demographic majority, they would get genocided. He definitely, and that's like I would say that's kind of like the definition of Zionism, at least for me. The belief that Jews in Israel need to stay at that ethnic supermajority. And I think that's something that Ethan believes in.
Yeah, I would say that I probably do too. Like at least as far as like for their own safety. But I get what you're saying, that like the logic is looping. Because I was saying earlier.
So it's like, dude, so Jews must maintain an ethnic supermajority for their own safety. Okay. Are you like they're not being attacked by the Palestinians within Israel? They're not being attacked by the Palestinians like Israeli citizens. If they were in one country and they had relatively equal demographics, are you saying Jews within Israel would get attacked? Like you're making the argument for an ethno state because Israel's at perpetual war with all of its Arab neighbors. Forget about the idea that Israel's the one doing the war. Like they're doing the offensive wars. If it's a country at war with another country. It's not demographic groups at war with each other. If there was an equal amount of non-Jewish people in Israel, that would not be a separate country. That would just be like a different demographic group within the same country. How would that hurt the lives of Israeli citizens unless you're just saying that like Arabs are more violent than Jews? And obviously there are Jewish Arabs, but in a lot of Zionist minds, Arabs are distinctive than Jews. And even in Ethan Klein's mind, because he does make the distinction between Arabs and Jews, he's like, well, there's a lot of Arabs in Israel too. I mean, like it's not all Jews there. Like, dude, yeah.
don't necessarily have a problem with an ethno-state in and of itself. Like, I think that tons of countries in the Middle East.
Yeah, I should have told them that I'm Arab. I'm actually an Arab Jew from Romania that's also Native American and Hispanic. Every one of those things I've been called before. Okay, so if people put the label on me, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna repeat it back.
Would have an ethno-state under that same sort of definition, that like they're going to stay the majority as an Arabic majority, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with like Japan wanting to be an ethno-state, or whoever, depending.
Yeah,
on
bro. This is the part. This is the crazy part of the conversation. He starts literally defending ethno-states now.
the circumstances. Like, obviously, it would be insanely fucked up for the United States to become an ethno-state, because of the circumstances that we're in. Like, there's no way that we could ever do that. If people want to do that and they're in a circumstance where that's possible without having to like genocide anybody, without doing any cultural genocide or anything like that, then yeah, I think I'm fine with the idea of them doing that, like for their own people, just not I'm just not okay with them having to like engage in any sort of like genocidal behavior in order to meet that outcome. And
Yeah, and I would say I do think there's a difference between what,
I mean, it's so funny. It's like, I'm against genocide, but I'm in favor of ethno-states, which set the groundwork for genocide. Why would you possibly be in favor of ethno-states? Like, he's not saying, oh, well, like if a country ends up being a demographic group, like, I don't think that's inherently bad. He's like, no, I am in favor of ethno-states.
talking about Iran, which did expel a bunch of Jews from Iran in the last century, and Japan, who they've done some bad things too, but they are ethno-states now, but they're not like legislating themselves as an ethno-state. And I think that would be where I have an issue with ethno-states, is when they take actions like Israel, where they specifically write into their laws establishing like the rules of their ethno-state inside of like these quasi-constitutional laws, which they govern their ethnic supermajority by.
Bro, me out. I just saw him being promoted by the H3 Reddit. I didn't realize that he was like in favor of ethno-states. I'm sorry. He was literally being promoted by Ethan Klein's fans because he's like anti-Hassan, and I'm like, hey man, like what's going on? Like, how do you feel about Zionism? And he's like, actually, I'm in favor of ethno-states. I didn't know I didn't know that's how this conversation would end up.
Like, would you like? Because usually when people say they're pro ethno-state, they are conservatives and like white supremacists. You're not a white supremacist, right?
Not yet. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not a white supremacist.
Well, I did catch the part where you said you were a conservative and now you're like more center. So I'm like, okay.
I'm like, I better cover my bases. I'm like, you're not a white supremacist, right? Like, I'm just like, okay, let's really get this. Let's cover everything from the ground up at this point.
Not yet.
Yeah, just kidding.
But like, do you agree with me that it's probably not the best thing in the world if countries basically enact legalized segregation between different ethnicities of people?
Yeah, no, that is definitely not good. That's why I'm saying it's like based on the circumstances. If you already have like a homogenous country and you want to say like, hey, we're going to legislate that we don't want to let in like anybody of other ethnicities after this, like I don't necessarily have a problem with that. The main issue that I would have with it is in terms of like when there's refugees that need to come to your country or something, and now you're not willing to take them in because you have this law.
God damn, Emily. He doesn't look that much like Hila. Maybe around the eyes a little bit, but not. Wait, he does have the Esteban stash.
But yeah, like that's why I was saying, like, it's based on the circumstances, as long as they're like not doing something like that, like yeah, where there's already people in their country who are living there that they're now discriminating against. That's definitely where it becomes problematic. But in the sake of Israel, or in terms of Israel, where are they doing that? I may just not be aware of it.
They have specific laws talking about specifically
that they have to be
Jewish
a majority.
people have the right to self-determination. Not necessarily that they have to be a majority, but when they talk, like, they have specific laws talking about how they basically have special rights. Jewish people in Israel have rights that non-Jews don't have in Israel.
So I read that the other day, And then we went to look up what rights they had, and it turns out that the only things that we saw was that there are some places where they don't have voting rights, but technically, technically they have. Sorry, yes, they don't have voting rights, but that's because they're not citizens. And then the ones that are citizens just don't have a polling place that's close to them. But that's because it's illegal to live in that part of the country, and that because they're not able to get like running water and electricity to it because it's out in the middle of the desert. And so those are the only ways that they actually distinguished between their rights. And then they gave the other example that they gave was that they're not allowed to teach about the Nakba as a
He's like, Israel doesn't have laws discriminating against Palestinians. They just have a neighborhood of Palestinians that can't vote. They don't have electricity and they don't have water because, the desert. Not like Israel entirely is within the desert. Bro. Oh, and they can't teach about the history of Israel because that gives some kind of credence to the idea that Palestinians are being discriminated and genocided.
A thing that is in a way to where they're like denying Israel's right to exist as a state. Those are the only two things that I saw as examples of them like having any sort of discrimination in the law.
Yeah, I just sent a few links to your Discord in the general chat. There's this article from the Institute for Middle East Understanding. It's the 7 most.
Anyway, I'm gonna skip through this a little bit. I send him a list of racist laws because he's like, no, there are no laws. Let's see if he pulls it up.
Is unique to the Jewish people. The other article I listed is an Amnesty International article which highlights the apartheid within Israel proper. So one thing that Ethan Klein said recently is, I'm going to go to Israel to show you guys how free it is, because obviously in Gaza and the West Bank, there's apartheid there. But in Israel itself, there's Palestinians and they're involved through like every level of government, which is ironically a talking point Hassan prescribed to Ethan like a couple months ago. And Ethan said, why are you putting stuff in my mouth? I never said anything about Palestinians like high up in the government. And then a few days ago, he says that exact thing. But so he makes the claim that there's no apartheid in Israel itself, and that's just objectively not true. So
I mean, I would also say that it's not in Israel, but I would say that it's like the examples of apartheid seem to be in the West Bank, but that because it's under occupation, is that why you're considering it like part of Israel?
Yeah, it's an occupied Palestinian territory. It's occupied by Israel.
The guy's parsing semantics with me when I say, oh yeah, Israel has apartheid in the West Bank and Gaza, and then he's like, well, I mean, but are you saying that it's apartheid in the West Bank because it's a part of Israel?
Okay.
And Ethan himself says that apartheid in the West Bank and Gaza is apartheid. Like Ethan himself will say that. That's pretty like commonly accepted, I would say.
Okay, yeah, I would say under the UN definition, I would. The only reason I make the distinction is because I think that's where a lot of people end up getting confused. It's like if we call something a genocide, generally what most people think of is like you're killing a bunch of people based on race or ethnicity. But then when we use the UN definition, you can literally just be like moving people, or there's no distinction between like a violent genocide or a cultural genocide. Right, yeah. And so I think it's the same with apartheid, where the apartheid isn't based on race. It's just based on the place where they're like occupying them. But because it is like one race that's there for the most part, that's why definitely under the UN definition, it would end up being considered apartheid. And so, yeah, it ends up being where it's like colloquially most people wouldn't consider it apartheid, but obviously under the UN definition it would.
That's also just not true. Like he's trying to create space for himself where he's like, okay, well, like maybe it's apartheid depending on how you look at it. It's like, no, colloquially people would call what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank apartheid, right? Like they have checkpoints that they have to walk through. There are different amounts of rights. They literally are in like different population sectors. And even when they work within Israel, they are treated differently. They have different transportation. It's colloquially and officially apartheid.
It would qualify.
Right, yeah. And I think that Amnesty International does a pretty good job of talking about the different methods that Israel uses to keep the Palestinian populations within Israel.
I was kind of assuming that this guy would like pull up the sources that I literally linked him an article listing the most racist laws of Israel. I linked him the Amnesty International article highlighting the apartheid that Israel's carrying out, and he didn't pull up any of the sources on his stream.
sectioned off from the rest of the Jewish population. And it makes a pretty compelling case for apartheid within Israel's like proper borders, not even talking about the West Bank or anything like that.
You said you sent me something. I don't have any.
I sent it into the general chat in your Discord.
Oh,
Anyway, is there anything
And,
else?
like, this
Okay,
is
he
just a
did
big
pull it
issue
up.
that I have with Ethan Klein, and a reason why I've been covering it so much is because he seems to think that Israel is fine the way it is, but when we're talking about the settlers in the West Bank and when we're talking about the genocide that's going on in Gaza, then that's the issues with Israel. And one message that I've really been trying to put out there in my coverage of Ethan is there are bigger issues, or there are deeper issues. I wouldn't say there's bigger issues than what's happening in Gaza or the West Bank right now, but there are deeper issues than just the genocide and the far right Netanyahu coalition right now, and the settlers. Like there are deeper issues that Ethan is not really understanding, and I think it's doing a disservice to his audience because they're not getting a full picture of what's going on.
He stopped playing the game for
yeah,
now.
maybe. I guess most of the time when I listen to Ethan talk about these things, I rarely hear him say things that I disagree with. I think lots of times he gets examples wrong of things, so he'll pull up a video of somebody saying like, oh, this person wasn't raped, and then I think he did this with Denims, going off about the fact that this girl who did interviews wasn't raped, and he kept going off thinking that she was denying her rape when in reality she just never even claimed to have been raped. She gave stories about other women being raped, but not herself.
Yeah, I saw
Okay, I don't care about Denims.
Every time I've heard him talk about Palestine, it felt like he was talking about it in a fairly like.
I'm gonna skip a little bit. I think he talks about Bad Empanada. Let's see what this is.
Land acquisition law.
Because we go over these laws and he's like trying to parse semantics, but it's pretty bulletproof. I just want to get to the part where I'm like, okay, I want to go back to where you actually supported ethnostates.
Any countries who do qualify for that, like maybe like Holland or something like that. I don't know.
I think your mic might have gone out.
Yeah, sorry, I got it. But yeah, like Biden came in after Trump like started that pipeline. Biden came in and ripped it all up and stopped the building of it and removed the pipeline because it is their reservation. It goes against our treaties with them for the government to be able to.
Anyway, he was talking about, oh, well, Native Americans have ethnostates. Like, okay, how's that working out for them? Like, why are you in favor of ethnostates if your example is that Native Americans have tribal reservations in the United States of America?
A pretty slippery, I won't even say slippery slope, I just don't how they are the demographic majority.
Mhm.
And then when they start seeing different country, like an already established country, and
Mhm.
join this country, like there was that whole like Haitian population in, what was it, Ohio, where Trump famously said like they're eating the cats and the dogs there.
Mm.
It's like, okay, yeah, they
Haitians,
kind of
yeah.
took over that small town in Springfield. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that,
Right.
because they wanted to make a better life. What I would have an issue with is, let's say that enough Haitians moved into that town where now they are the demographic majority.
Mhm.
And then when they start seeing white people coming back into the town, they pass laws that say only like a certain number of white people can come here, and they give lesser rights to white people because they want to discourage them from coming in. I
Yeah.
think that's where I would have an issue with an ethnostate. Like when we
Yeah.
talk about an ethnostate, there are two different meanings. There's literally just
Like
an
pure
ethnic
homogeny
demographic
and then
majority.
also keeping a certain percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the literal demographic majority, and then there's the legislative. We are now defining this as an ethnostate.
Yeah.
I think those are two different things, and I think it's a pretty slippery. I won't even say slippery slope. I just don't think it's a good thing to legislate your country based off of.
I would
race or
agree
ethnicity.
again in the United States, but that's because in the United States we already have such a big melting pot that we need protections for everybody to be able to live where they want and have freedom of
Like, this guy's just a conservative liberal. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm kind of in favor of racism, but he's a liberal in the sense that he just goes based off of what the current situation is. Oh, Japan has like an ethnic supermajority of Japanese people. So like if they wanted an ethnostate, it'd be fine. Oh, Denmark has a white population. If they want an ethnostate, it'd be fine.
freedom of movement, freedom of association, and we have to be able to like exist under the civil rights law where we can't discriminate based on race. And so obviously in the United States, yes, we are way too far along to where we're doing our own thing, we're doing our project, we're you know, we are not capable of doing something like that because it would hurt way too many people. But again, another country doing it, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It's just based on the circumstances, which I don't think honestly there's really any countries who do qualify for that, like maybe like Holland or something like that. I don't know. But there's yeah, I don't think there's really any countries that would qualify because I don't think there's any countries that are like 100% homogenous except for maybe like North Korea, maybe. But yeah, if they did exist and if they were already homogenous, like 100%, like we have this one group of people and we just want to keep it that way, I have no qualms with them like choosing to keep it that way. There are like a ton of studies that come with like talk about the benefits of these things as well. Like you have more shared culture with people, more shared values, you look alike.
This is literally just like white supremacist talking points, which is why I asked him, are you a white supremacist? And he's like, no. But let me tell you all of the benefits of having like a white ethno state. Oh, you look more alike, you trust each other more. It's ridiculous stuff.
So therefore you're more trustworthy, you're trustworthy or trusting of your neighbors and trusting of like random strangers that you walk past because you look alike and feel like because you look alike you're more likely to have shared values and have shared culture. And there's just like, yes, there's a lot of stats and a lot of studies that talk about homogenous places and the benefits that come with it. And so yeah, I think the world might have been better off if everybody did end up staying in their own countries in the beginning because of a lot of the issues that come with racism and the way that we've oppressed each other, the way that we've hurt each other.
Bro, it's like the Israelis are literally genetically the same as Palestinians, and they just identify more with the West because the West is giving them preferential treatment. Like, dude, holy shit, this is such an ignorant fucking take. The whole Rwandan genocide was created off of colonization coming down and putting in arbitrary distinctions between two ethnic groups that were like extremely genetically similar. And the guy's like, I think if everyone stayed in their own country, there'd be less racism. Fucking insane thing to say.
Each other, the systemic problems that come afterwards and the systemic racism that gets carried on and the cultural
oh yeah, this was a hilarious comment down here. Tom indirectly showing his racist side. No, I'd say this is pretty directly showing your racist side.
Stigmas that exist between one another. And like I feel like if one chose to try to preserve what they have already, yeah, I would never fault them for doing that. And I think that that's a decision that I would never have an issue with. But I could also understand that if somebody was a communist and they plan on eventually the whole world moving in that direction for communism, that like, yeah, the ethno states could never possibly exist under communism. And so they probably be against it across the board.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know what to say at this point.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about like the benefits of a homogenous country, that seems a little bit different than like that seems like a little bit of a different argument. It just seems like you're kind of in favor of ethno-states overall rather than, which I guess like you never said you weren't. You're just in favor. You just don't want them to legislate them being an ethno-state unless they meet a certain criteria.
I'm saying that I don't think that it would be wrong. I'm not in favor of it. I like what America's doing. I think that like the melting pot sort of idea in the project, like I think that this is like an awesome thing, and I am very like proud to be an American and proud to be part of it. And that even other countries who look at our country all the time and think like, dang, everybody's there's got like race issues and they're all racist and they got problems. Like I feel bad for them when they're like, yeah, oh no, yeah, I don't really know anybody who's not white and don't really engage with people in other.
So he's like, no, there are so many benefits for an ethno state, but also I really enjoy the benefits of having a melting pot country. I mean, holy shit, dude. What are you arguing at this point? You just want an ethno state, but you don't want to be called out as being racist.
Cultures, because I grew up in New York. Like I grew up in New York City. I grew up the minority in my neighborhood and in my classroom and everywhere I was. And I think that like America's a super cool place.
So you say that like ethno states ethnostates, if they just like happen to be homogenous, or yeah, if they happen to be homogenous, it's not wrong if they legislate that homogeneity.
Mhm.
Do you really think it's not wrong if, like, the example you used, Holland, said that we're vastly limiting our immigration from black people coming in? And if I'm black and I want to immigrate to Holland, I can't do that because they already let in like the 10 black people that year. Do you like that's just racism? And you don't think that's wrong?
I'm talking
Bro, I'm literally like, it's like talking to a 5-year-old. Do you think racism's bad? Do you think that's fair?
more about the fact that they would say nobody from the outside comes in, like not even just based on like being white, but being born in Holland. Like if they're saying like, oh yeah, you just have to be born here in order to live here. If you want to leave, that's fine, but we don't even want to let anybody from the outside in, unless
So
they
really,
were
it's
born
just
here,
an
left, and came
immigration
back.
policy. So essentially,
Yeah.
you're saying ethnostates would stop immigration?
Yeah, I think that they would stop immigration because, unless it's somebody who like moved out and came back, like I keep using Japan as an example. Like if somebody was born in Japan and then grew up, like left to go to America to like go to college
So it's like at this point, he's just advocating for no immigration whatsoever.
and get an education and crap like that and started working here, but then eventually moved back there. Like, yeah, I would assume that they would let them move back because they were born there. But if they married like a white girl here and wanted to move back with her, yeah, I assume they wouldn't let her if they were engaging in this sort of legislation.
Just once again, this example that he gave of a Japanese person like marrying a white girl and like having a kid with that person and not being able to move back to Japan, that is good in his estimation. It's like, what are you talking? He's so lost in the sauce. He's so like wound into a whole maze, and he's just like all discombobulated, where now he's like, no, actually racism is a good thing.
It seems completely unrealistic. Like no country in the history of the world has ever shut off its immigration entirely.
Well, North
and-
Korea has
and
pretty much done
saying-
that for a while.
Yeah, they've had like North Korea is probably the closest example, but
And
even
then
then,
if we
they've
go
had,
back farther
like,
than
cross
that, like
back and forth between
yeah,
countries
not throughout
forever.
our lifetimes, but if we go back before that, yeah, tons of countries pretty consistently shut off immigration
I mean,
in tons
there
of
are,
ways.
like, immeasurable reasons for people to immigrate for countries.
Anyway, I'm just
wouldn't
I'm
think
just
this-
arguing in favor of immigration at this point, like allowing, like, listen, I shouldn't have to argue in favor of allowing people to move where they want to move, and for countries to not entirely shut off immigration to the point where like 0 people can come in.
is immoral for them to do it. I think that it probably would like hurt them in a ton of different ways, and that's why I'm saying that like I like living in the United States where we have a lot of like different cultures and where I'm able to learn about like a ton of different cultures, engage with a ton of different people with different races, different backgrounds. I grew up celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas and
Anyway, talks about himself again.
or artisan. Like you can't engage in any sort of
Yeah, interesting ideas on ethnostates. Talking with you, it seems like they're not worth it, but like I guess if people just really want to maintain their culture or ethnicity, they're gonna do it.
yeah, I
That's
don't think
not
they're worth
something
it
I
either.
would support, but
But it is. You laughed when I brought up Professor Flowers, right? She was the one.
Anyway, guys, this goes on. I might do like a part 2 reaction to this, but I gotta go, so I'm gonna leave now. But holy shit, this is just so fucking funny. I go in because Ethan Klein's chat is hyping this guy up. They're like, oh, he talked to Ukrainian Anna, and they just shit on Hassan. It's great content. You guys should go check it out. And I go check it out. I talk to the guy. I'm like, okay, you're not racist, are you? He's like, no, I'm not racist, but I do support ethnostates, even though they're not good and they're racist. But like, in theory, I think people should be able to have an ethnostate. He doesn't know anything about Israel. He doesn't know anything about Ethan. He doesn't know anything about Hassan. And yet he still feels like he can talk about this shit without actually educating himself. Like, I'm just a regular person, but I actually try to do the work to learn about the subject matter that I'm talking about. I try to do the work to learn about Hassan, learn about Ethan, learn about Israel. And this guy just doesn't do any of that. So least racist Ethan Klein defender. Can we make that claim? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll probably try to be making more videos, going live more. So I'll see you in the rest of this week. See ya.